No, turn it down. Yadivigyaya Radhe Tom Nayanam Chadarandike Vancha Kalpatarubhascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So, we will begin by offering the dense, nectar-filled rain cloud pouring down mercy from the sky. Perfection, the successful performance of bhakti is dependent on some factors. And in his Mangalacharana, he was explaining, the first verse, we've gone over the last few days, was explaining that the mercy of Swayam Bhagavan, Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and his purport about this Mangalacharana, Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, non-different from Brajendranandan Sri Krishna in Vrindavan, that self-same personality, but coming to distribute the nectar of bhakti through Nam Kirtan in Kali Yuga. And so he's explaining that this mercy, special mercy of Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, it's like a limitless, uncontrolled cloud bank of extraordinary nectar. Madurya. And that nectar falls like rain on the heart of the sadhak. So anybody seeking the fruits of bhakti, we're dependent on the mercy of Mahaprabhu, but no fear, because that mercy comes pouring down like the rain from a monsoon cloud. And that anyone who's performing the ninefold process of bhakti, Shravana, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, etc., these are like the crops in the field, these 9 processes of bhakti, and that nectarian rain of sweet nectar is like that which nourishes the crop. So Mahaprabhu's mercy will nourish our bhakti. We're very dependent on that mercy to nourish our performance of bhakti. And the first step of that is that it destroys the burning of the heart. What is that kleshagni, that burning from the incessant pain of this material world? There's so many struggles in this material world, so much anxiety and stress and fear, that this bhakti, one of the very first symptoms of it, which we were reading, we're just giving a little summary of what we covered previously, was that even in the beginning stages of bhakti, this removal of a lot of the great burden of material life is experienced even by the performer of bhakti, one who takes up even the very beginning of chanting. This is one of the immediate things that we experience. And then he makes a request that may that unrestrained, unlimitedly powerful bank of Srimad Mahaprabhu's sweet mercy fill himself, his own heart, which he was saying is very dry, like a lifeless tree in the desert. So he himself, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, is posing as a sadhak and entreating Mahaprabhu, please show me this mercy. So, now the next text will begin now. Bhakti purvar shitatam tu rasam parshad jaatadhi tom nomi satatam rupa nama priyajanam hare. This is a translation, Bhavanuvad translation, which means that rather than being simply a direct literal translation, also the inner meaning of the verse is brought out. So, Srila Gurudev translates this: the most elevated saints, the Mahajanas, of former times also accepted the shelter of Bhakti Devi. Now, however, by the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's most dear associate, Srila Rupa Goswami, people who have obtained real intelligence are directly perceiving bhakti in its form of bhakti ras. I offer my heartfelt obeisance unto Srila Rupa Goswami again and again. So now we're going to read what is called the Piyush Varshini Vritti, which is Srila Gurudev's explanation of these verses. Now, anybody that's here, you should know that this is not the ordinary class on bhakti. This is, this book, Madurya Kadambini, is one of the postgraduate studies on what is bhakti and how to perform it. And you're lucky we're in the very beginning. And there are two things to consider. One is that in previous ages, and even in the Kali Yuga up until the appearance of Mahaprabhu, the conception of bhakti was understood. Devotion to the Lord as, the perfection of life. And all the different sampradayas, all the worship of all the different avatars of the Lord, they all point and aspire for bhakti, for developing love of God in some way. But it wasn't until the advent of Mahaprabhu that the full-blown conception of what bhakti is in its highest state was understood. And that is bhakti ras. Ras means that pleasure or that nectar, that love that exists in the loving exchange between the Lord and his devotees. And up until the time of Mahaprabhu, the conception of that ras was very limited to an appreciation of the Lord through the lens of Aishvarya. That is, understanding that God is very great, I am his insignificant servant, and we are serving him in a humble way by offering prayers, by offering elaborate forms of deity worship. But a sense of intimate, loving connection with the Lord, this was not really described. Only worship in great opulence and awe and reverence. Like we see in South India, the worship of Lord Narayan in opulence, like we read about when we read about the worship of Lord Shiva, or any of the previous avatars. But when Srimad Bhagavatam, which was that the original avatari, the source of all other incarnations, is Sri Krishna himself. And not Dwarka Krishna, not Mathura Krishna, but Krishna in Vrindavan. And this was surprising to many people. Throughout history, many people thought that Krishna's activity in Vrindavan were somehow lesser than his activities in Dwarka, because they're very human-like, very wondrous, simple in so many ways, like a cowherd boy playing with his friends, like a boy with his mother, like a boy with his beloveds, with the splendid Brajadevis. And he was only in Vrindavan for 10 or 11 years. And the full understanding of the nature of the love between Krishna and those devotees had never been explained. There was a general appreciation, but people thought that this was some kind of lesser pastime of Lord Narayan. It's only when the idea of bhakti ras was introduced that the pastimes in Vrindavan could be fully understood. And not only understood, but entered into. And we owe the debt of gratitude to the empowered servant of Mahaprabhu, Srila Rupa Goswami, who was tasked with revealing this in his books, like Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Upadesh Amrita, Ujjvala Nilamani, Vidagdha Madhava, Lalita Madhava. Incredible books that were written by Rupa Goswami to reveal this. He was specifically tasked by Mahaprabhu to explain Bhakti Ras. So now, Srila Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj is going to explain this purport and give us the necessary background so that when we begin text 3 tomorrow, every morning we're reading this from 7:30 to 8:30, and anyone who wants to hear can just tune in. We're doing this on internet, on what is it called? Discourse, whatever it is, Discord. And some people are hearing it every day. Some people are hearing it some days. Yeah, some days. And some people never hear it because I guess it interferes with work. But it's beautiful, beautiful book. Previously, this book was translated, but in a very small way. There was a skinny little book that was printed, but this book has been expanded, and Srila Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj has given extraordinary, in-depth purports to each of the statements of Vrindavan Das Thakur. So hold on to your japa bags there. We're going to take a beautiful ride. So let's read this verse once more. The most elevated saints of former times also accepted the shelter of Bhakti Devi. Now, however, by the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's most dear associate, Srila Rupa Goswami, people who have obtained real intelligence are directly perceiving bhakti in its form of bhakti ras. I offer my heartfelt obeisance unto Srila Rupa Goswami again and again. So first verse, he was offering obeisance to Mahaprabhu, now to the servant of Mahaprabhu, Srila Rupa Goswami. So Gurudev says, the essential nature of the living entity is that of a servant of Krishna. So this is the Mula Shloka of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas in Chaitanya Charitamrita. If anyone ever asks you, what's the Mula Shloka of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, what would you say? Anybody know that? It's the essential nature of the living entity is that of a servant of Krishna. It's in Chaitanya Charitamrita. What? Jivara Swarupaya Krishnara Nityadas Tatasta Shakti. That the eternal nature of the living entity is an eternal servant of Krishna. And that nature is that we are fully spiritual, just like Krishna, simultaneously the same and yet different and non-different. This is the nature of Jiva Shakti, Tatasta Shakti. So this is our identity. However, since time without beginning, one has forgotten Bhagavan and thus been swallowed up by the deluding potency, this Mahamaya. Consequently, we have fallen into the cycle of birth and death and are burned by the three kinds of torment. Sometimes, as a result of one's own deeds, one becomes a demigod in the heavenly kingdom, or a ruler on earth. And sometimes we become a subject. Sometimes we are a Vipra or a Brahmin. Sometimes we are an artist, Shudra. Sometimes we're happy and sometimes sad. Sometimes we take birth in species of plants. Sometimes as an aquatic. Sometimes as a bird or a beast. And sometimes as demons like Daityas or Danavas. We wander throughout centuries in search of happiness, yet nowhere do we find actual happiness. When the supremely compassionate Bhagavan observes his own dear living entity's wretched condition, his heart melts. He descends in the form of the timeless Vedic scriptures. He manifests in his various forms his own personal avatars, and he has his own dear companions descend to the world as acharyas, exemplary teachers. In this way, by giving instructions on bhakti, he bestows eternal happiness upon the forgetful, stray living entities and engages them in service to him. So this is certainly true, that in this world is a world of forgetfulness. People do not know that our actual nature is spiritual. Everybody is absorbed in this bodily identification, thinking that this is our reality. And thus we put all of our energies, our hopes, our dreams in the activities of this world. Our relationships, our jobs, our families, whatever it is we're striving for, success and happiness in this world. And the idea that we are not actually of this world at all, that we are spiritual beings, is completely foreign to most people. And even those who accept that idea, at least philosophically, we're still so entrenched in the bodily conception that we don't act in that way. We don't act as spiritual beings, we still act as material beings. We're very consumed. 99% of our energy every day is consumed fulfilling the needs of our own body and those who are in a relationship with us, like our families and our friends, our co-workers, our nations, whatever the ways that we identify. So somehow or other, we have to know how to awaken that. And for most people, the inclination to awaken that idea doesn't even exist. And when you bring that up, that there's an all-merciful God, you say, well, if God is so merciful, then why is there so much pain and suffering and death and disease? And they just cite all the problems. So if I was God, I wouldn't do that. Well, that's why you're here, because you want to be God. And so this is your playground. See? And if you don't want this, God is very merciful. And he shows that mercy by descending continually. He says, Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhutanam dharmasya tadatmanam sijamyaham paritranaya sarunam vinashaya chadushkatam dharma sangstarpanartaya sambhavami yuge yuge. I'm always ascending, age after age, millennium after millennium, to specifically teach you this, to establish the righteous path of your happiness and your perfection. And I come in my own personal form, millennium after millennium, and I show extraordinary pastimes, and then I leave revealed scriptures, so that even if you don't see me, you can hear about these pastimes. And the power of hearing about these pastimes means that you will become attracted to me. This is the science. Srimad Bhagavatam describes it. And just to make sure you get it, I also send in every generation great, great devotees who will guide you if you are so inclined. There's no absence of the mercy of the Lord in this world. None at all. It's just an absence of our inclination. And even if you don't have an inclination, Mahaprabhu came, he himself comes, and even for those who don't want bhakti, he purifies them anyway, opens their eyes, and gives them that opportunity. We're reading in the purport of the first verse what it means, the mercy of Mahaprabhu. When the rain cloud falls, it falls onto a river. The river is like us, trying to practice bhakti even if you're not. And when the rains fall in the monsoon season, the rivers fill and flood over the banks. And they flood all over the land, and they consume everybody. This is like the mercy of Mahaprabhu flooding the land, and even those who are hiding from it, they get flooded. So during the rainy season, you can hide from the rain in your little house, but when the floods come, nobody's safe, But this flood is a delightful flood, and it will fill you with the greatest happiness. So how do we get happy? He says, indeed, only devotion to the Supreme Lord, Bhagavad Bhakti, can make the averse and unhappy living entities eternally fulfilled. Averse means opposed. They're opposed to the Lord and unhappy. Only bhakti can make them fulfilled, because by this they attain him. The Vedas Shrutis, Smritis, Puranas, and so forth enunciate this perfect conclusion in unison. It is never possible for the living entity to secure his permanent auspiciousness through fruitive work, karma in this world, or the pursuit of knowledge that is independent of bhakti or is just with some other goal than bhakti. Knowledge of this world, a learned poet or scientist, or knowledge of impersonal realization, Brahman. This kind of knowledge is not auspicious. Or mysticism, yogic power in siddhis, tapas, penance, austerity, and other processes. These will not give you happiness. Because the only thing that will give you happiness is when the soul becomes connected to the spiritual energy that it is meant to be connected to. My Guru Srila Prabhupada used to give the example of a fish out of water. We are like fish out of water. No matter what you do for that fish, if it's out of water, it can't be happy. You can give that fish fancy clothing, you can give the fish a throne, you can give the fish cars and gold and everything of this world, but if it's out of water, it's not in the water, it can't be happy. It will gradually die. And so this is the fate of the soul. Surrounded by matter, we live, we die, we live, we pursue, and no matter what we get, we can't be happy. We think that if I could just be like that other guy, I could be happy. If I could be like one of these Bollywood stars, I'd be happy. If I could be one of these big athletes, I could be happy. If I could be like this big educated scientist, I could be happy. If I could be like the prime minister, I could be happy. If I could be like that guy down the street with 3 cars and a bigger house, and his wife is nicer to him than my wife is to me, or his husband's better than my husband, well, I was looking over there thinking, oh, that guy's got it better. But no matter what, can't be happy. And you know what the proof is? Because those poor guys that do have everything, they'll always tell you, money can't buy you happiness. And everyone goes, yeah, sure. Yeah, it's easy for you to say. You got all the money. But they're not. I just saw this quote from some guy the other day, some big star in America, been a star since he was a kid, and now he's got married to some other star, and they're always in the papers. And then there's a quote from him saying, is this all there is? Is this all there is to life? He's got everything you could want for somebody his age, and he's not happy. And everyone's wondering, how could that be? Because unless and until you have awakened your spiritual nature and connected it to divine energy, real happiness energy, Ladini Shakti is the happiness energy. We are not connected with that. We are connected with the reflection of that, the vitiated form of Maya Shakti, V's happiness. And it doesn't cut it for us. That's why no matter how good you seem to have it, there's something missing. And every one of you has that experience. Every single one of us in this room knows there's something missing. The illusion is, oh, it's some more money, or it's a better job, or a husband, or a wife, or something. That'll make me, no, won't. Only devotion to the Supreme Lord can make the adverse and unhappy living entities eternally fulfilled. So then he quotes from a sutra by called the Madhva Bhashya, the Matara Shruti. Bhaktir evainam nayati, bhaktir evainam darshayati, bhakti vasha purusho, bhaktir eva bhujasi. It is only bhakti that brings the living entity close to Bhagavan. Bhakti alone enables the living entity to see Bhagavan face to face. That supreme person, Bhagavan, is actually controlled by bhakti. Bhakti is superior to all else. Yes, that Supreme Person, Bhagavan, is controlled by Bhakti. We have, anyone who's been in the classes for the last couple of months, has gone through us reading this Damodar Astakam, this beautiful pastime of Mother Jashoda controlling Krishna by tying him to the mortar and punishing him. But controlling him, how? By fear, by guilt, by power, by love, by prema, by pure love. And this is the mystery of bhakti. Then he quotes Svetasvatar Upanishad. Yasya Devi Para Bhaktir, Jata Devi Tatagaro, Tastraitai Katitakarta, Prakashante Mahatmanaha. All the confidential purports of the Vedas are fully revealed to that great soul who has the same transcendental devotion to his Gurudev as he has to Sri Bhagavan. So Gurudev has written that so that we keep carefully in mind that devotion to Bhagavan means devotion to Gurudev. There is no connection to Bhagavan for us except through the grace of his appointed representative, Sri Guru. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is acknowledging that. He's first praising Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, then he praises Rupa Goswami as Guru, as Acharya. And this is the message of the Vedas. You can't jump to God. You can't. Who does he talk to? Who does he enlighten? Many people in many different religions say, I don't need any guru or any prophet. God is in my heart. He speaks to me directly. Well, he could if he wanted. He's all powerful. But who does God speak to? He speaks to those who have love for him. Srila Prabhupada is very fond of quoting this verse, explaining who God speaks to. If you want to say that God speaks to your heart, God says this. These are the people I speak to. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yenamam upayanti te. To those who are constantly devoted to me and serve and worship me with love, to them I give transcendental knowledge. I am connected and speak to them within the heart. Those persons. Bhajatam priti purvakam. That means one who is ascended through all the different stages of bhakti, situated on the platform of bhav or prema and priti. They have developed great love and affection for the Lord. He speaks to them. Right? Speaks to them. This is natural. Even in this world, who do you speak to? Who are you most attached and in your own life controlled by? Controlled by those who are very dear, who have great love for you and show that. You're conquered by them. So these people, this is what Krishna, this is to whom he speaks. And he says, to them with the shining, I destroy with the shining lamp of knowledge the darkness born of ignorance. To those people I speak. So then he says, quotes, Ananda Mayo Bhyasat. This is from the first part of Vedanta Sutra. The word Ananda May means filled with bliss. And it's used in Vedic literature. It refers to the Supreme Spirit, and it's repeatedly used to describe him. So the absolute truth is filled with Ananda. This is one of the qualities of the absolute. And we also have that potential because we are an aspect of that. So how do we get to that? The sages of Naimisharanya asked that question. It's in the very beginning of the Srimad Bhagavatam. They asked 6 questions to Sutta Goswami, and they wanted to know, there are many in the Vedic scripture Very confusing. So many scriptures. How do we know what is the proper path in this Kali Yuga? What to do, what not to do? What's the highest dharma? And so the answer comes in the second chapter of that first canto. Savai Pung Sang Paro Dharma Jato Bhaktir Ahokajay. Gurudev quotes that. The topmost dharma of human life is devotion to the transcendent Bhagavan Sri Krishna. In this world, we use the word dharma very loosely. My duty. In India, at least in India, people have a certain affection for the word dharma. This is the one possible saving grace that India still has. Even though they're rushing headlong into the jaws of death, following the example of the West, still the traditions are so strong here that at least there's a conception of dharma and duty and the nobility of performing one's duty. They don't know what that duty is, and they misplace it, but they know that. And so you can ask them, what is your purpose in life? I must do my duty. If I do my duty, then I will be perfect. Then I will have done good for the God, if I do my duty. Right? But if you want to do good for the God, you have to know what the God says. And here he says, Savai Pung Sang Paro Dharmo, Jatobhaktir Ahokajay, Ahoituki Apratyata, Yayatma Supersedity. If you want to supersedity, please the Supreme Atma and yourself, the small Atma, Paro Dharmo, Bhakti. This is what we have to do. Bhakti to God. That's real dharma. That's eternal dharma, Sanatana dharma. The other dharmas are nimitic, temporary, born of this body, and they change. Like right now, you have a duty to your family, right? Like you got this duty, this lovely little girl, right? You've got a duty to her. And you're bound by it. Can't help it, right? Can't help it. But in 60 years, you're going to forget that duty, and you're going to be born in another body, and whatever obligations you had are finished, because you're no longer her daddy, you're somebody else's baby. You become, and then they're bound to you, and then you have, oh, these are my parents, so I must grow up, get a good job, and support them in their old age. You got this whole new cycle of duty, you know? In this life, you might be a soldier, and so you've got all the specific duty, politician specific duty, policemen, you know, everybody's got duty, born of their body, their work, their nature, but it's all nimitic, because it's in relationship to a temporary body. Real duty is eternal duty, you know, born of our relationship with the Lord. Whoops! Okay, we started a little late today because nobody came. I'm just going to read a little bit more, and we'll be continuing this for quite some time. Just want to conclude this thought. So, the topmost dharma of human life is devotion to the transcendent Bhagavan Sri Krishna. Now he's going to quote second canto, second chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam. Bhagavan Brahmakartsnena Trir Aviksha Manishaya Tad Adya Vyasat Kutasto Ratir Atman Jato Bhavet. Sri Brahma, who knows the fundamental truth regarding the Lord, thought long to find a solution. With resolute attention, he scrutinized all the Vedas 3 times, and by his intelligence he concluded that the topmost perfection of religion is that by which one can obtain exclusive love for Bhagavan Sri Krishna, the super soul of all existence. So this Srimad Bhagavatam is describing the history of Lord Brahma, who by meditation was inspired within the heart directly by the Lord himself at the beginning of creation, and empowered with all power of creation of this particular universe, but also empowered with all Vedic wisdom and knowledge. And he had to sit and contemplate it because he received the knowledge in the heart, but then he had to contemplate to understand the conclusion of it. And as the most intelligent being in the universe, and the original guru in the universe, the father of all the subsequent sages and rishis and everyone that was to come, he came to the conclusion that the topmost perfection is that process by which one can obtain exclusive love for Bhagavan Sri Krishna. And Srimad Bhagavatam is that book which describes that in the purest and most complete way. And Rupa Goswami took Srimad Bhagavatam and other ancillary literatures, expanded on them, and explained the process of bhakti. Now, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has taken all those instructions and he's going to lay them out in a very systematic way, explaining what is bhakti. And in other words, we understand bhakti in three ways. We have to understand the goal of bhakti, the objective, and that's called prayojan. We have to understand the process by which we can achieve that. That's called abhideya. And we have to have the fundamental knowledge of ourselves, of this material world, of the spiritual world, of Bhagavan himself, and the interrelationship between them, so that we can understand what is the goal and what is the process properly. And so Rupa Goswami explained all of these things, and now it's going to be presented step by step. So Gurudev says, through scriptural statements such as these, the immutable, that means unchanging, perfect conclusion is being thoroughly established. It is only by Bhagavad Bhakti that the living entity's distress completely ceases and he obtains actual happiness. This bhakti does not rely upon any sadhana or practice like fruit of work, karma, mysticism, yoga, or the pursuit of knowledge, jnana, to manifest. Nor does it ever rely upon place, time, or eligibility. Bhakti, akin to the all-powerful, self-manifesting Bhagavat Tattva, is a self-manifesting, all-powerful truth. This is affirmed because she, Bhakti is feminine, is none other than a special function of Bhagavan's internal potency, Swarup Shakti. Hence, the exalted souls who know this secret have taken full, exclusive shelter of bhakti and have taught it. Okay, so we'll begin at that point tomorrow. It's just a little introduction. There's something that we want to just share and explain, that in a lot of temples and places of worship people go to, there's different kinds of programs there. And even in our sister temples, like different ISKCON temples and other temples that exist in Bangalore and around India, you see the worship of Radha and Krishna, worship Mahaprabhu. And there's different kinds of classes and things that are given. And for the most part, there's, especially in ISKCON, there's a general accommodation and appreciation that most people are new when they come, or they don't practice very seriously. And so always the classes are very basic and over the same thing. You're not this body, chant Hare Krishna. And all this is very important instruction. Nevertheless, to advance and develop in bhakti, we have to go deeper, because our practice of bhakti, we need a maturation, a development of our faith and of our nishtha, our conviction, right? And that development is dependent on Sambandha Tattva, on this knowledge that we talked about. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada always extolling the importance of coming to the platform of Shuddhanam, because everything is based on chanting. We heard that in the first verse, that of all the limbs of bhakti, 9 are most important. Of the 9, they all rest on kirtan. In this age, kirtan is the process. It empowers all else. But when Mahaprabhu talks about kirtan, he talks about pure kirtan, Shuddhanam. And we can't, Saraswati Prabhupada says, you can't come to Shuddhanam without sufficient Sambandha Gyan, Sambandha Tattva. And so our acharyas have taken pains to write these very developed books. Srila Prabhupada took pains to explain this philosophy in great detail, but some of his purports are very philosophical. Most people skip over them, like in Chaitanya Charitamrita. But those purports are based on the writings of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, giving us an introduction to them. So someplace, somewhere, these teachings have to be laid out, so those people that want to hear that, they have a place to go. So that's what we do. So that's what we're going to continue to do. That's what we've always done. And so we always get this crowd, small crowd, but good crowd. Good crowd. So that's what we're going to be doing for this next few months, this book. And read it every day, hear it every day. If you read this book, what happens? That Madurya Kadambini, it showers on you. Isn't this a beautiful book? Beautiful book. It's going to shower on you, and you're going to appreciate it. Sometimes when bhakti showers on us, we don't appreciate it. You know, we get this great mercy and we fight it. You know, so we have to know what is bhakti, and we're going to hear about it. Not just how beautiful bhakti is, but what are the obstacles in our heart, the anarthas, the different kinds of anarthas, and how they manifest and oppose bhakti and trick us into not practicing properly. Like Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna says, oh, you tell me to concentrate the mind, but chanchala himana Krishna, this mind is flickering, it's tricky, you know, it's painful. And Krishna says, yes, the mind can be the greatest friend or the greatest enemy. So the only way to make it a friend is by having purified intelligence that can control the mind and direct it properly. And that's what this study will do. It'll teach us to appreciate this kirtan, why we chant, and how to chant, and to take joy and become more determined in our practice. Okay, so we'll stop here. We'll have artik, chant together. Then we'll have some nice prasad. I hope everybody brought 3 bellies with them, because we made enough for God knows how many people. Little, right.